thought the worst day of my life was the morning my mom died. Turns out that wasn't even close. That morning was awful, obviously. I still remember stupid little things from it. The light in the kitchen, her coffee still sitting there, the dishwasher hanging open because she'd been unloading it before she sat down and told me her chest hurt. Those are the details your brain keeps for no reason. But as bad as that day was, at least it made sense. My mother died. That was the whole pain then. Huge, ugly, crushing pain, but still just one thing. The day that really wrecked me came almost a year later, when two women I had never seen before showed up at our front door and told me the house I grew up in wasn't ours. My name is Emily. I'm 29, from a small town in Ohio, the kind where everybody says they respect privacy while somehow still knowing who missed church and who got into a screaming match in the Walmart parking lot. I have a twin brother, Roger. He's younger than me by 6 minutes, which I use against him more than I should. He works construction, doesn't talk much, and hates drama with the kind of deep, sincere hatred most people save for kidney stones. When things go bad, Roger doesn't yell. He just sort of shuts down and goes blank. Like if he stops reacting hard enough, maybe the problem will get embarrassed and leave. I'm the opposite. I ask questions. I remember things. I keep pushing long after everybody else wants to stop. That mattered after Mom died, because somebody had to answer the calls, sort the mail, talk to the bank, deal with paperwork, and pretend any of it felt normal. For most of my life, it was just me, Roger, Mom, and the man we called Dad. He wasn't our biological father. That part was never hidden. Mom already had me and Roger when she met him. He knew that. He married her anyway, raised us anyway, and not once did he make us feel like we were some burden he took on to be noble. He taught Roger how to use a hammer without smashing his thumb. He taught me how to check oil, how to drive in snow, and how to tell when somebody was trying way too hard to sound impressive. He worked long hours, came home tired, sat in his chair after dinner, and showed up for everything that mattered. So no, he wasn't our biological father. He was still our dad. He died in a car accident when Roger and I were kids. Old enough to remember him clearly. Old enough that losing him split our life into before and after. After that, it was Mom. Mom handled the house, the bills, taxes, repairs, insurance. All the boring adult stuff Roger and I were perfectly happy to ignore as long as she kept doing it. So, as far as we knew, it was Mom's house. Not because we'd ever checked a deed or looked up records. Just because that's what life looked like from the inside. She lived there. She paid the bills. Her dishes were in the cabinets. Our school pictures were in the hallway. The same crack ran through the upstairs bathroom tile for half my childhood because Mom kept saying she'd get around to fixing it and never did. That's what ownership looks like to most people. Then she died. Heart attack. Fast. No long hospital stay. No warning. One minute she was sitting at the kitchen table and the next, everything in that house felt wrong. The first few months after she died were a blur. People brought food. People said all the things people say. Roger went back to work because if he stayed home too long, I honestly think he was going to punch a hole through a wall. I handled what I could, ignored what I couldn't, and tried not to think too hard about how quiet the house had gotten. Almost a year passed. Not a full year, but close enough that people around town had mostly moved on. Roger was back in his routine. I was trying. The house still hurt, but it had become the ordinary kind of hurt. The kind you can carry around and still function. Then, one Thursday morning, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I looked out the front window and saw a dark SUV. Clean. Expensive. Not flashy. The kind of car that says money without needing to say it twice. Two women got out. The older one was probably in her 40s. Controlled. Well-dressed. The kind of face that made you think she had practiced delivering bad news without ever raising her voice. The younger one looked closer to my age and already irritated. They walked up to the porch and knocked. Not gently. Not aggressively either. Just like they already expected the door to open. I answered. The older one looked at me and said, "Are you Emily?" "Yeah." "I'm Claire Mercer." This is my sister, Jenna. That meant nothing to me at the time. Then Claire said, "We need to talk about the house." I honestly thought she had the wrong address. "I'm sorry," I said. "What?" "The house," she repeated. "This property." By then, Roger had come out of the kitchen and was standing behind me. Jenna held up a folder. "This house is part of our father's estate," she said. "We've started dividing assets, and this address came up." I remember just staring at her. Because that sentence had so many things wrong with it, my brain couldn't pick one to panic about first. Roger said, "What father?" Claire answered, still calm. "Our father. Daniel Mercer." Nothing. The name meant nothing. At least not yet. Jenna opened the folder and handed me a few copies. Property records, tax documents, things with stamps and seals on them. I didn't understand half of what I was looking at. What I did understand was the address. Our address. And the name. Daniel Mercer. Not Mom. Not Dad. Not me. Not Roger. I looked up and said the dumbest thing possible. "This is our house." Claire's expression shifted just a little, and I realized she thought I was being naive. "That's what we assumed your mother led you to believe," she said. "There are a lot of ways to get yourself thrown off a porch in Ohio, and that sentence is one of them." Roger stepped forward. "You need to leave." Jenna crossed her arms. "We're trying to handle this without making it ugly." "You came to our house and told us it belongs to your dead father," Roger said. "It's already ugly." Claire shot her sister a quick look, then turned back to me. "If there's documentation we haven't seen," she said, "now would be the time to find it." Then they left. I shut the door and just stood there with the papers in my hand. Roger looked at me and said, "What the hell was that?" "I don't know." And that was the worst part. If they'd come about a debt, or a lien, or unpaid taxes, or something normal and miserable, at least it would have made sense. But a house we'd lived in forever somehow belonging to some man we'd never heard of? It was too weird to even panic about properly. That afternoon, we tore the place apart. Every drawer, every folder, every old box in the hall closet, every envelope shoved in the back of Mom's dresser. We found the usual dead parent stuff. Insurance statements, warranty papers, birthday cards she should have thrown out years ago, medical bills, old church bulletins, a recipe clipped from a magazine in 2009 that she apparently planned to make someday and never did. What we did not find was a single piece of paper explaining how the house had become hers. No deed, no purchase records, no mortgage. Nothing. By that night, I was scared in a way I hadn't been when those women were standing on my porch. Because if the house really had been Mom's, there should have been something. Instead, it felt like the legal side of it had been hidden on purpose. The next morning, I went to the bank. I was trying to figure out how Mom paid for things related to the house. Property tax, insurance, anything. A woman there named Denise had known my mom forever in that small-town way where everybody knows everybody just enough to smile sadly at funerals. She pulled up Mom's accounts and frowned. "There aren't many property-related expenses here," she said. "Mostly utilities." That made my stomach drop. Then she added, "There's a safe deposit box." I stared at her. "A what?" "Your mother had a safe deposit box." I didn't know that. Roger didn't know that either. So later that day, we were sitting in one of those little private bank rooms with fluorescent lights and fake wood furniture while a metal box got set on the table in front of us. Roger looked at it and muttered, "If this is just old jewelry and random papers, I'm going to lose my mind." I opened it. There were photographs, a few sealed envelopes, some documents wrapped in a rubber band, and one thick packet with a notary seal. No cash, no dramatic hidden fortune. Just paper. Which somehow felt worse. I opened the packet first. The first page was legal language. Dense. Cold. Annoying to read, but the meaning came through fast enough. My mother had a private agreement with Daniel Mercer, and Daniel Mercer was our biological father. Roger took the packet out of my hands and read it himself. Then he dropped it on the table like he didn't want to be touching it anymore. No, he said. I picked it back up. Same words. Same meaning. Same sick feeling crawling up my throat. The agreement said that in exchange for my mother's silence regarding their relationship and the paternity of her 2 children, Daniel Mercer would provide residential property for her use and ensure transfer of that property to those children after her death. To us, it specifically identified us as children born outside his marriage. I read that line 3 times, and each time it somehow got worse. Not because I didn't understand it, because I did. And suddenly a lot of things clicked into place all at once. The missing father on our birth records, Mom never naming him, Dad raising us without pretending we were biologically his, and the house. God, the house. Roger was staring at the wall. Finally, he said, I don't care. I looked at him. He shook his head. I mean it. I do not care who he was. He's not my father. He was angry, but underneath it, I could hear the hurt. I had a father, he said. And he was right. That was one of the strangest parts of the whole thing. The news should have felt like it changed everything. In one way, it did. In another, it really didn't. Because no piece of paper was ever going to make Daniel Mercer the man who taught me to drive. No legal language was ever going to make him the guy who sat through Roger's high school baseball games even when it was freezing. Blood didn't fix that. Still, I was furious. At Mercer, obviously. But also at Mom. And that felt awful because she was dead, and I loved her, and I missed her. And all of that was still true. But sitting there in that bank, reading a contract that had quietly shaped my whole life, all I could think was, you should have told us. You do not get to die and leave your kids holding something this big by themselves. There were letters in the box too, not hundreds. Not enough to feel like some sweeping romance. Just enough to prove this wasn't one stupid mistake. Some were practical. Money, timing, fear, logistics. A few were personal. I only read parts of them that day because I couldn't handle much more. What I did read made the whole thing messier instead of cleaner. Mercer hadn't treated Mom like some random fling he wanted to forget. That would have been simpler. Easier, maybe. He cared about her. Maybe loved her. Just not enough to say it out loud where it could cost him something. That part made me hate him more. Because men like that always sound noble in their own heads. We got a lawyer. Claire came back 2 days later. This time she was alone. Roger didn't even want to let her in, but I did. She stood in our kitchen looking uncomfortable in a way she clearly hated, and I put a copy of the agreement on the table in front of her. She read the first page without reacting. By the second, the muscles in her jaw tightened. By the third, she looked up at me and said, "Where did you get this?" "My mother's safe deposit box." That can't be real. I'd probably say the same thing if I were you. Roger was leaning against the counter with his arms crossed. "Take it to whoever you need to take it to," he said. Claire hesitated. Then she asked, "Did you know?" "Know what?" I said. "That Daniel Mercer was your father." Roger laughed once, and there was nothing funny in it. "No," he said. "We've had a pretty educational week, though." Claire closed the folder. Then she said, "I'm taking this to the notary." The name meant something to her. It didn't mean much to me until she said more. Turns out the notary had been their family's legal notary for years. Of course he had. Small towns are great at pretending secrets live alone. They don't. Secrets always have helpers. That evening, Roger barely said 10 words. He sat in Dad's old chair in the living room and stared at the TV without turning it on. At one point, I asked if he was okay, and he said, "No." A few minutes later, he added, "Don't say Mercer's name again." I said, "Okay." What else was there to say? The next day dragged. No call from Claire, no call from the lawyer. By late afternoon, I had convinced myself the notary had dismissed it, the agreement would get challenged into dust, and we were about to lose the house because dead men with good reputations always seem to keep winning. Then headlights hit the front window. Claire was back. So was Jenna. I opened the door before they knocked. Jenna looked different. Less angry, more shaken. We all ended up in the kitchen again, which felt unfair somehow. Like that room had already had enough happen in it for one lifetime. Claire stood by the table and said, "The document is authentic." That was it. No speech, no apology, no big dramatic moment. Just those 4 words. And somehow that made it worse. The notary had confirmed the signature, the seal, the filing date, and the validity of the agreement. He didn't tell them anything personal. He didn't need to. The paper was real. Jenna sat down hard and rubbed both hands over her face. Then she looked at me and Roger in this confused, wrecked way that made her seem younger than she had the first time. Not like she was looking at strangers anymore. Like she was looking at something she didn't want to name. Claire said quietly, "We didn't know." For some reason, I believed her. Maybe because there was nothing left to gain by lying. Jenna shook her head. He talked about honesty all the time. Nobody answered. Because honestly, what do you even say to that? Sorry your father built a whole public life on morality while hiding us? Sorry our mother loved a man who needed her to stay quiet to keep looking holy? Sorry all of us are in this kitchen because dead adults made disgusting choices and left the cleanup to their children? There wasn't a good version of that conversation. After a minute, Claire asked if she could see the letters. I said no, not to be cruel. I just wasn't ready to hand over every piece of my mother to them, no matter who their father was. That upset Jenna. Those are his letters too, she said. Before I could answer, Roger said, "Then maybe you should have known him better when he was alive." It was a mean thing to say. I knew it right away. Jenna looked like he'd slapped her. Claire shut her eyes for a second and said, "Jenna, sit down." She sat. And weirdly, after that, the whole room got more honest. Not warmer, not nicer, just more real. Claire admitted they had found the property while sorting through Mercer's estate after months of delays and paperwork. At first, they thought it was just some quiet asset. An investment property, maybe? Something old and buried. Then they saw my mother's name connected to utility records and occupancy and started pulling the thread. They came expecting resistance from strangers. They did not come expecting siblings. Roger never softened. To him, Mercer was nobody. Biology didn't change that. I wasn't interested in building some fake emotional bridge either, but I stopped seeing Claire and Jenna as enemies. They weren't. They were standing in the wreckage from a different direction. After that came lawyers, filings, challenges, deadlines, all the horrible practical stuff that shows up when dead people leave behind land and lies at the same time. But the agreement held. The house stayed with us. Legally, that should have felt like winning. It didn't. Roger moved out a few months later. Not because he hated me, not because he couldn't afford to stay. He just said the house felt different now. Too loud was how he put it. I knew what he meant. I still live there. Sometimes I stand in the kitchen and look at the table where Mom used to drink coffee, sort coupons, and remind me to rotate my tires before winter, and all I can think about is how much she was caring while doing completely normal things. How many mornings did she stand at that sink knowing exactly what this house really was? How many times did she almost tell us? Did she really think silence was protecting us? Or did she just keep putting it off because there was never going to be a good day to say, "By the way, your biological father is a respected churchman who paid for this house so nobody would find out you existed in the wrong way"? I don't know. And that's what death does sometimes. It doesn't just take the person. It takes your chance to ask the question that mattered. I'm still angry at her. I'm still protective of her too. That probably sounds stupid, but both are true. I don't think she was heartless. I think she was scared. I think she told herself she was keeping us safe. I think she looked at two kids and a roof over their heads and a powerful man with a reputation to protect and decided survival mattered more than dignity. And maybe for a while, maybe for years, she believed she was right. Sometimes I drive past Mercer's church. It's still there. Big stone sign, trimmed hedges. Families walking in on Sundays dressed like they've got nothing in their houses they'd be embarrassed to talk about. Part of me wants to blow the whole thing open. Leave copies of those letters on windshields. Burn his good name down until there's nothing left of it but ash and committee meetings. And part of me is just tired. Because even if the whole town knew, it wouldn't undo anything. It wouldn't give Mom her pride back. It wouldn't give Claire and Jenna back the father they thought they had. It wouldn't give Roger peace. And it definitely wouldn't turn Mercer into my dad. That part is settled. The strangest thing about all this is that I don't think about Mercer as much as you'd expect. I think about my dad, the real one, the one who chose us, the one who walked into a life that already had complications and stayed anyway, the one who never had biology on his side and still managed to make that matter less than almost nothing. Mercer had money. Fine. He paid for a house. My dad was the one I wanted when I was sick, or scared, or stuck somewhere with a flat tire. That answers the father question for me. So yeah, Roger and I kept the house. But I don't think of it as an inheritance. I think of it as proof. Proof of what fear can make people agree to. Proof that a person can love you and still leave damage behind. Proof that being respected and being decent are not the same thing at all. From the street, it still looks like a normal family home. Warm, quiet, boring even. But now I know better. My mother got a house out of that deal. In return, she had to stay silent for years and let a man keep looking righteous in public. That's what it was. And the ugliest part is that I understand why she took it. If she'd done it for greed, I could hate her more easily. If he'd treated her like garbage from the start, I could reduce him to a simple villain and be done with it. But life's never that convenient. People make ugly bargains for reasons that sound almost reasonable at the time. Protect the kids, keep the roof, avoid the scandal, get through today, and explain later. Then later never comes. And one day, your children are in a bank, reading the contract that built their whole life. I still miss my mother. I'm still mad at her. Those two things don't cancel each other out, no matter how much I wish they would. If there's any justice in this story, it's not that Roger and I got to keep the house. It's that the truth survived anyway. Not because anybody brave finally did the right thing. Not because Mercer confessed. Not because morality won. Just because paper lasts a long time, and dead people eventually lose control over what they hide. So I still live here. Same front porch, same hallway, same kitchen window, same house. Just not the same meaning. And the man who gave us this address was never really my father. The man who earned that word is buried in a cemetery across town.